The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's. They are guided by the mind. They are coming from the heart. They are guaranteed to kick your ass. Get ready to choke on some collective truth, cock boys and girls. It is once again time for the Sunday sermon. That's right. Trying things a little different. We're back to a side camera now. We're going to see how it works out. You guys fill me in down here in the comments. Let me know how it's coming through. Camera, sound quality, the whole bit. Here's the drum roll. Oh, man. I got to tell you, dude, I've got, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the most badass bumper music on the fucking planet, dude. Red Desert, Older No Wiser. We kick off the broadcast every single week with this jam, dude. Little gut stomping rock and roll. Red Desert from Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's right, man. You guys checking out on Bandcamp? Do their thing, man. That whole album that this came off of, man, is really just kind of a rock and roll album. But this one track in particular, really kind of caught my ear early on, man. Hello, George. All you guys. It's going to be hard for me to respond to some of you guys because I've only got you on this tiny little camera over here right now. We switch things up a little bit, but I'll try to respond as well as we can. And then we got Opium Tales. We got George. We got Emmy. Most of the usual suspects are on board. I don't know if the live stream's going to show any comments over here in the production window. Maybe not. It's all right, though. It's all right. Everything seems to be working. All the neat stuff that we're doing here. And again, this is just a work in progress. Every week, try to do it a little better. Looking forward to the sermon. Stone! Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Always good to see Mr. Stone showing up. Old and dear friend and longtime supporter of the program as well, man. He's one of the OG prophets of doom with the Reverend, going back to the old school Celtic Odyssey days, man. Oh, the stories we can tell. And maybe when the statute of limitations run out, we'll actually, one day we'll actually tell them. But anyway, man, we got kicked off with the Red Desert. Somebody brought it to my attention, man. I'm going to go ahead and start fading the bumper music down. Once again, that is Red Desert from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I'm a little bit older, man. I'll leave it to you guys to decide if I'm any wiser. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and fade this out. Somebody brought something to my attention last week. Apparently, sometime between last week and this week marked about the 1 year anniversary that I've been doing these Sunday sermon broadcasts. And you guys who have been on, you know that when this thing started out, it was just it was cheaper than therapy for me. It was a chance for me to get on and vent all the rage that I had for what was going on in the world and all of the social and political developments that I found fault with. It was cheaper for me to get on here and rant for a week than to spend money on a therapist. And it worked out really well within the confines of that for a while, but eventually it sort of took on its own momentum. And I seem to have found my audience. You guys show up Sunday after Sunday. Even when we got booted from Facebook before, we had to go over the Twitter format. Now we've been booted from Facebook again. We're having to go over to YouTube. It's like the audience is on board and you guys follow me. And dude, I'm honored. As I say at the end of most of these podcasts, like every time you guys show up, I feel a little bit less like that lone voice in the wilderness, like John the Baptist out there, wearing a shirt made out of hair and eating locusts and wild honey. Sometimes it feels like that. But yeah, somebody pointed that out to me. It's like, Rev, you're a year in, right? And I was like, what? And I went back and looked, and yeah, sometime between last week and this week, we hit the 1 year mark on the Sunday sermons. So you guys that have been on board from the beginning, thank you. You guys that we picked up along the way, I thank y'all just as much, man. The support means the world to me, and again, just to feel like I'm not alone out here, to feel like I've got some like minds and some kindred spirits, all of whom are eventually going to wind up on a domestic violent extremist list for the FBI. But at the end of the day, man, if you're not on an FBI list by this point, maybe you're just not doing enough. I mean, that's really how it's shifted. I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of sponsors real quick, and then we're going to jump into this thing because there's another anniversary that we're celebrating this week that's a little more solemn, that I want to get into, and it's reflective of the state of mind where we're headed right now. And so I want to touch on that. But first, let me give a shout out to the sponsors, Roman and Allie and Roxy and the Bevy of Beautiful Women over at opiumtales.com. You can check them out on the website, opiumtales.com, or you can check out their Twitter feed. I'm getting some scuttlebutt that we might have gotten booted from Twitter. Oh yeah, Opium Tales. Yes, thank you. Reminding everybody to hit like and share on the sermon so we can get it up in the search ratings. Again, YouTube is a new format for me. I'm still learning my way around this thing. So if you guys can hit like and share, and it'll give us a little boost. That tip was just given to me by Opium Tales, who I'm giving the sponsor shout out to. But yeah, Roman, one of my oldest and dearest friends on the planet. And one day, when cancel culture isn't a threat to take him out, we'll be able to maybe even have him on the program, and we'll go over the story of how we met. It's actually pretty interesting. But we go all the way back to the 80s, man, before a lot of you knuckleheads were even born. So, yeah, there's that. So Roman and Allie and Roxy and the Bevy of Beautiful Women over Opium Tales, they are the erotic pinups and portraits people. They do some great work. And again, happy to have them as a friend. Happy to have them as a sponsor. We got the Ozman on board. Cool. Again, like straightening out the camera. We went back to the camera model over here instead of the webcam, and I'm going to play with that and see. But this is not the greatest camera that I'm working with right now. I hope the picture quality is coming through. I hope the sound quality is coming through okay. We're going to bump up the equipment as we go. I'm just experimenting with some different things right now. Other sponsor shout out that I wanted to give was, of course, to my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison, up at Nordic Smoke Barbecue in the great inland Northwest. They are the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest. I got to tell you, man, being a Carolina kid, being a Tar Heel kid in my misspent youth, and then spending 26 years in Texas, I'm spoiled for good barbecue, man. And I got up there, and most of what they consider barbecue in the inland Northwest is like meat with some sauce on it. They don't understand like rubs or smokes or any of that stuff. But my Viking brothers do, and they are legit and the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest, and they're an independent business. So they're trying their best to survive Inslee's lockdown. So whatever you can do to help them out, not just them, but any local business who's surviving these democratic lockdowns, do what you can. Got to keep these things afloat, man, because again, we got to look out for each other because nobody in the upper echelon is looking out for us. All right. So back to the other more solemn anniversary that we're celebrating today. And I'm going to refer you to this for those of you guys who are on Facebook. I'm going to give you the Google search engine. I'm going to read you know what? I'm thinking about reading a couple of snippets from this, but I really want you to read it for yourselves rather. But this is the anniversary of a horrible incident that happened on February the 28th of 1993, where agents of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms stormed a church in the Texas Hill Country. And you may be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I didn't hear about the ATF storming a church. That's because they didn't call it a church. They called it a compound. They militarized the entire situation, and the media, keep in mind, this is pre-massive internet days. The mass media was able to control the narrative, and they steered us all into believing that this was a dangerous cult with methamphetamine manufacturing labs and automatic weapons on premises that were diddling kids and all this other shit. They controlled the narrative, and they were able to execute, and they were able to sell that narrative to the American public. I'm talking, of course, about the tragedy of Waco, Texas. It started on February the 28th of 1993. By the time it hit April the 19th, day 51 of the siege, agents of the ATF, agents of the FBI, and other organizations within our federal government that are a bit more shadowy, it's come out since then, used actual military equipment that was borrowed from Fort Hood on specious premises. They went in and they burned down the compound You can speculate about that all you want. You can believe the official narrative all that you want, but the evidence is out there. The federal government murdered those people. Pure and fucking simple. The federal government murdered those people. And the body counts vary whether or not you count the bodies of babies that were growing inside their mothers when the place went up in flames. And but they killed them all: women, children, pregnant women, men. They burned them out. It was one of the darkest days in my adult life, but I am thankful that I got to witness it up close. Again, I will spare you reading the entire thing because it's long and it's wordy, but I want you to go and read it for yourself. I'll give you the search engine. When you enter it in Google, I want you to enter Reverend Bart Waco Reflections. Reverend Bart Waco Reflections. I want you to enter that into your Google search engine. The first thing that is going to come up is a Facebook notes page: Tragedies and Awakenings, a reflection. And there will be that long documented thing. I wrote this a few years ago on the anniversary of the event. It was an awakening for me. In 1993, I was a dumbass stoner kid. I was aware of some elements of hidden history. I was quite the conspiracy theorist, but I didn't have a full concept of, or at least a thoroughly developed concept of the way that power is exercised over the subjects in this sort of arrangement. And we went up there, myself and a friend of mine, John Bodman, and you guys have seen him on my threads before, and some of you may know him personally. We went up there because all we heard was that some Jesus freaks were shooting it out with some federal agents up in Waco. And we went, how long of a drive is that? Oh, about 2.5 hours. Fuck it. Let's get in the van and we'll go. And we did. And we were smoking weed all the way up there. And we got there thinking, hey, man, this is just going to be a big, amusing fucking party. And what we saw was nothing less than horrifying. And that first trip was an awakening, and we went up there several more times over the course of the siege. We interviewed locals. I got to speak to the McLennan County Sheriff, all of whom universally agreed that the Davidians were odd, but they were very good people, and they were all universally loved by the locals that we spoke to. Now, I'm sure there were probably a few locals around that are like, fuck those guys. I'm glad that, because there always is. I don't give a fuck who you are. There's always going to be somebody that hates you. I mean, I'm sure when Gandhi got shot, there was some motherfucker out there that was just like, yeah, fuck Gandhi. That motherfucker owed me $20. I'm glad they got him. It's like there's no pleasing everybody. But universally up there, people regarded them as good neighbors. And the reason I'm bringing this up was because this happened about a year after another tragedy in Ruby Ridge, Idaho. I am personally friends with one of the survivors of that tragedy. And this is the way power gets exercised. And we are running up on a point in history with all this talk about domestic violent extremism. For all the talk about Trump's charged rhetoric, he never came out and said that an entire political class of people needed to be viewed as threats to the United States and eliminated. He never insinuated that anyone left of center needed to be placed in gulags or needed to be federally surveilled, or, quite honestly, some people have suggested that we should just be outright killed. This is the run up to the rhetoric, and it's a very, very dangerous area that we have gotten back into now. But I want you to go and find that note. Again, Tragedies and Awakenings, Tragedies and Awakenings, a reflection. And you can find that, just Reverend Bart Waco Reflections. Go look at it and read it, because I don't want to bore you reading the whole thing word for word on here and taking up a lot of time, but it is important to me that you see it, because we're getting into that dangerous area again. And as I've said before, and as I've maintained, this is not a time to get black pilled, okay? This is not a time for us to look at all the things that are coming our way and people who are like us, who are like-minded individuals, who are kindred spirits, who think the way that we do, and have political views the way that we do. This is not the time for us to look at what all is coming down the pike and going, oh no, we're going to get crushed. We may as well give up now. America is over. If that's you, get the fuck away from me, because we've got no room for that kind of attitude. We've got no room for people that are totally black-pilled. It's counterproductive, and you're fucking useless to me. If you have already adopted the attitude that this is a foregone conclusion and you're fucking doomed, put a bullet in your head, man. You know, if you're really that committed to the premise. I'm not. I am of the opinion that we are still early on in this fight, and I am still committed to the premise that there are still more of us than there are of them. And I am still committed to the premise, and will remain committed to the premise, that the harder the far left pushes and the more egregious they get in their overreaches, people shake off the fence. And when moderates shake off the fence, they fall on our side without exception. If they have been fence sitters this long, if they have been grazers, for lack of a better word, and they see one side or the other pushing and pushing and pushing, maybe they believe the narrative, but sooner or later it's going to affect them directly, and it's going to knock them off that fence. And when they fall on our side without exception. So get that negative attitude, black pill shit out of your head. Be realistic about it. Know that we're heading into some dangerous territory. Accept the risks realistically for what they are, and put your countermeasures, our countermeasures, in place to cope with them. That's how we move forward. Not sitting around moping and clutching our pearls and wringing our hands and, oh no, the government's coming to get us. Dude, they have always wanted to. They're just being a little more naked about it nowadays. At the very least, I think we should find the honesty and candor refreshing. So that's my 2 cents on that. Anyway, we are, again, celebrating. And if I could, now that I've got the rant out of my system, if we could just take maybe 10 seconds just as a moment of silence for the people who lost their lives in that federal massacre in Waco, Texas. For those of you who were alive when it was going on, for those of you who maybe even believe the official story and have come to your own conclusion since then, even for those of you who may still believe the official story but just have some respect for people that were killed in a horrible tragedy, I'm going to take about 10 seconds just to give a moment of silence to the people that perished at Waco. May whatever God y'all pray to bless their souls, and may we see them all again in the afterlife. Little moment of silence for some 90 odd fallen U.S. citizens massacred by the federal government 51 days after this day back in 93. So anyway, yeah, go read the article. So right up. Okay, so let's try to pick up our spirits a little bit. I didn't mean to get us off on that heavy right off the bat. That I probably could have thought that out a little bit better. Let me see here. We're gonna do that. Pull that particular. Here we go. I have a friend. You guys have seen him. If he's watching on YouTube, and I doubt that he is. I doubt that he put forward the effort. He's one of the few friends on the left that I keep, because generally he's a critical thinker. He's a pain in my fucking ass, but he is a critical thinker. And he's been a good friend of mine for a very long time, so I haven't totally blocked him and cut him loose. But you guys will know who I'm talking about. He's also a successful business owner, so again, you got to give credit where credit is due. But he's very fond of throwing out slippery slope fallacy. That is his tagline. Every time you point out that something is headed in a specific direction, and that direction is negative, he is quick to fall back on the, oh no, we can't do that, slippery slope fallacy, slippery slope fallacy. I've dedicated entire programs to this, where it's not a slippery slope fallacy if it has historical precedent. And again, some of these slippery slopes, we are 2/3 of the way down and rapidly approaching that big crash at the bottom, and motherfuckers are still standing off to the side going slippery slope fallacy. Glenn Greenwald, you guys may be familiar with Mr. Greenwald. Speaking of critical thinkers that I don't always agree with, Glenn Greenwald is the guy who broke the Edward Snowden story. He was the journalist who basically collaborated with Edward Snowden to get the story out there that the United States government, and again, everything touches on everything else. You remember the same people like John Brennan, people like James Clapper, who during the Trump administration were, he is a threat to this, he is a threat to that, and they were held up as shining examples of we should trust the intelligence community. And people seem to have forgotten that during the Obama administration, these same two people, Clapper and Brennan, both lied to the American people about the extent of National Security Agency surveillance of United States citizens. Snowden was the guy that went public with that. Glenn Greenwald. And again, guys, I want you, there will be a quiz. Actually, there's not going to be a quiz, but I want you to get familiar with the names, okay? Paraphrasing Sonny fuck excuses. Yeah, indeed. I want you guys to start getting, Australian guns, another slippery slope fallacy. Roman, yeah, you're spot on. I want you guys to start getting familiar with the names. Again, as I've said before, I'm not the guru here. Don't let me be the guy that turns into the figurehead where you just go, yeah, what he said. Don't get me wrong. I'm honored that you've got that kind of confidence in me, that you think that highly of me, but I want you to have these facts and figures and faces and names locked in your own head. So when you go to present this case, you're able to do it on the fly, because it's one-to-one conversations that's really going to fucking turn the tide. So remember these names: James Clapper, bad. John Brennan, bad. Glenn Greenwald, good, because he broke the Edward Snowden good story, right? He's the guy that put it out there how American citizens were getting spied on by their own national security agency. Greenwald was the guy that broke it. Now, I don't always agree with Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is, I wouldn't go so far as to call him a hard leftist, but he's definitely solid left of center. The one thing that I will say for Glenn Greenwald, and the recommendation that I have for you and how you view these people with those particular political leanings, is you got to take them for what they're worth. I don't always agree with Glenn Greenwald, but I know, watching his integrity and his track record over years, that when he comes to a conclusion, he's not parroting talking points from one side or the other. He came to that conclusion on his own volition. I say all that to get back to the slippery slope fallacy thing, because Glenn Greenwald had a tweet this week, and I think it pretty well sums up where we are, where we've been, and where we're headed. This is a tweet from Glenn Greenwald. And again, when you hear me talk about we shouldn't give an inch when it comes to free speech and free expression, when you hear me use the word absolutist, I mean that shit. Never give an inch, especially for people that you don't like. Because if they can take away theirs today, they can come and take away yours tomorrow. This is the Glenn Greenwald tweet. It only took 2 years to go from disappearing Milo Yiannopoulos and Alex Jones to banning content said to amplify narratives that undermine faith in NATO. Imagine where the line will be 2 years from now. Censorship is an intoxicating power that endlessly expands until it is smashed. He could not be more correct. Now, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, amplify narratives that undermine, yes. just a couple of years ago when they ran the first trial balloons. Who can we ban? Who can we deplatform that everybody universally hates, and we're not going to get any pushback on it from the right or the left? Well, the two candidates they came up with were Milo Yiannopoulos and Alex Jones, because they're putting stuff in the water to turn the freaking frogs gay. Alexi, that was just for you, buddy. Here's the thing. Those two were, I wouldn't go so far as to say universally hated, but they were universally derided from both sides, the right and the left, because they both leaned hard conservative. The left dismissed and hated them out of hand. But unfortunately, and the reason why I say that you have to look out for freedom of speech, particularly for those people that you don't like, is that they deplatformed Alex, they deplatformed Milo, all on the premise that their speech was too extreme, was that they posted misleading things and posted hate speech was how they got Milo. Again, let alone how chilling that very term should be to every one of you. Hate speech. How far is that from thought crime? But I digress. They got rid of Alex and they got rid of Milo. And the left, of course, cheered. And most of the people on the right were thoroughly nonplussed by the whole thing. They were just like, oh, no, we don't care about them. They may be conservative voices, but they're not like us. See, we're normal, sane conservatives. We're not going to be like Milo talking about Catholic priests blowing him when he was a kid. And we're not going to be like Alex talking about putting stuff in the water to turn the freaking frogs gay. We're not going to be those guys. No, sir. Yeah, I keep going back to it because, I do a pretty good Alex Jones, don't you think? Anyway, he hates it, by the way, when I do that. Anyway, they let him go. They let him go. They didn't raise a ruckus because they figured if we can appease the gods of deplatform, if we can appease the Twitter gods and Jack Boots Dorsey, if we can appease them by giving them a couple of sacrificial offerings, we'll give them Milo, mincing little Milo, and we'll give them crazy little Alex. We'll give them those two, and they will take those. They will take Milo and they will take Alex and they will burn them on the sacrificial altar of, controlling speech and deplatforming and civil discussion and all these other things. And what they didn't realize is what I've been screaming at people for fucking decades, is that once you set down that road, there is no limit. Clearly, Greenwald understands this. It is a sinister force, and it will not stop until it is crushed. Just 2 years after deplatforming Milo and Alex, Twitter pulled somebody off, and look this up yourself. I'm not making this up. They pulled someone off because they posted an analysis, a factual analysis, a strategic analysis, I should say, of our position in Europe vis-a-vis NATO, now that Biden is back in charge and now that Biden is making all these horrible moves. That they posted something and they had their account pulled. And again, I'm virtually quoting here, for amplifying narratives that undermined public confidence in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I'll let that sink in for a minute. Well, wait a minute. No, that wasn't supposed to happen. They were just supposed to get rid of the crazy guys like Alex Jones and like Milo. They were just going to get rid of the crazy people. And now they're saying we can't express a different political opinion. I fucking warned you. Slippery slope fallacy guy. I fucking warned you. I've been telling you for years. People didn't want to listen. That's where we're at. So again, it's bad enough that we've let them go this far. They're going to push it as far as they can. And now is the time to stand up. I've got a few news of the week bullet points that I want to get into here. And a couple of those are going to touch on the censorship argument as we get more into it. There were a couple of moves that made this week, and of course the usual suspect to whom I referred earlier. Again, his response predictably was slippery slope fallacy. Oh, well, it's just one school district. Go fuck yourself. It's so tiresome at this point. Anyway, we all heard our new president, Joe Biden, our cadaver in chief. We all got to witness his press conference and his excusing. Is there anyone out there? Let me just ask this right off the bat. Raise your hand if you feel like Joe Biden is not completely compromised to the Chinese government and to the Chinese Communist Party in particular. Just raise your hand if you feel like he's not compromised. All right. Now, while you got your hand up, okay, I want you to take that finger and I want you to point to the closest possible exit, right? I want you to point to the closest possible exit, and then I want you to follow that finger to that closest possible exit and walk the fuck out of my life, please. Because anyone with two brain cells left to rub together. I mean, look, dude, we don't even need to get into any of the speculative stuff. We know for a fact that he sent his crackhead son on Air Force Two, an official government airplane, by the way, for those of you unfamiliar. He sent his crackhead son on Air Force Two to China to negotiate a private fucking banking deal that wound up benefiting not only his crackhead son, but no doubt the big guy. And all of these things are coming out. It is not Russian disinformation, as Jack Boots Dorsey used as an excuse for shutting down the New York Post bank account for trying to, the New York Post Twitter account for trying to report on it. It was not disinformation. It was not tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. The FBI finally had to come out and admit after the election that, yes, in fact, we're investigating fucking Hunter Biden for all of these things. Anyway, yes, he's entirely compromised. And to illustrate that, during his news conference, for those of you who are watching it, and I wish I could pull it up right here just to play the audio, because it's chilling, to say the least. A president, an American president, I want you to imagine any American president prior to this, the possible exception of Obama, because Obama gave a wide leeway to cultural differences with the Muslim world and with the Arab world. No, I do not think that Obama was a stealth Muslim. No, I do not believe that he was a Kenyan operative or any of the other nonsense stuff. I feel like he was a less than mediocre president who left us way too far open and largely continued Bush's egregious overreaches. But no, I don't think it was a stealth Muslim. But I want you to picture any American president. I didn't mean to go that far down the rabbit hole. Picture any American president prior to Joe Biden getting on a national television broadcast and excusing the actions of a Chinese government engaged in literal genocide. Now, I'm not going to sing the praises of the Uyghur Muslims. The Uyghur Muslims are not my ally. I have no position on them whatsoever. I'm not singing their praises. I don't know their belief systems. I don't know how they are similar or dissimilar to Sunni or Shia or any other Muslim sect. I don't know. I haven't done the homework on the Uyghurs. For all I know, they could be a cult of, child diddlers, like Catholic priests in the Northeast. I don't know, right? But what I'll say is this: regardless of their beliefs, what China is doing to them is nothing shy, by definition, of a genocide. I don't care that they could be bad people. I don't care that they could be a group of people that I wouldn't find anything in common with. It doesn't matter. By definition, what is going on there is a fucking genocide. And it's going on in camps that, by definition, if we're going to call the immigrant detention facilities on our southern border, if we're going to really stretch our imagination out and call those places concentration camps, well, then by God, a place like where they're putting the Uyghurs in China definitely fits the criteria, don't you think? Especially because nobody's going into the migrant camps and stealing organs from immigrant children. They're doing that in China to the Uyghurs. They're executing them. They are harvesting organs out of their bodies. This is not tinfoil hat shit. Go look it up. By their own admission, they are harvesting organs from these bodies and selling them on the international market. I want you to picture any president prior to Joe Biden who would look at this state of affairs and excuse it as, and I fucking quote, that's the anger vein. That's the danger vein right there when it starts. And I quote, different cultural norms. Quote unquote, different cultural norms. His words, not mine. Go look it up. You can find the unedited video online. Google it, YouTube it, go look it up. Different cultural norms. I want you to imagine Franklin Delano Roosevelt or Harry Truman, later on, saying that we had to make allowances for Unit 731 in the Pacific Theater and their human experiments because, hey, it's the Japanese and they've got different cultural norms. I mean, he kind of did. They gave them all pardons in exchange for their research. But it's not like they would have come out publicly and said that now, would they? I want you guys to imagine FDR when the German with the funny mustache and his buddy Mengele was doing the experiments on twins and stitching people together and subjecting them to high pressure and low pressure freeze altitude experiments, injecting freezing fluids into their bloodstream, all these other things. If they would have tried to explain that away as, well, the Germans just have different cultural norms. Something tells me that wouldn't fly. But yet, here we are. And of course, the mainstream press took it up and they ran with the narrative. However, according to Reuters, the Dutch Parliament, Amsterdam, the Dutch Parliament, apparently what they are saying about smoking weed clearing your head maybe it's true because our own doddering cadaver in chief cannot be bothered to call what's happening to the Uyghur Muslims genocide, but the Dutch Parliament did this week. Yep, that's right. Activists and UN human rights experts say at least 1 million Muslims are being detained in camps in the remote western region of Xinjiang. The activists and some Western politicians accuse China of using torture, forced labor, and sterilizations. China, of course, denies any human rights abuses in Xinjiang. It says its camps provide. I hope you guys are. I hope you guys are sitting down. Are you sitting? Are you ready for this? Says that its camps provide vocational training and are needed to fight extremism. This is China's official position on a fucking genocide. The camps provide vocational training. Wow, that's sort of a rough equivalent to Arbeit macht frei, I suppose. Yeah, they work makes you free. Where have I seen that before? But yeah, the camps provide vocational training and are needed to fight extremism. Anyway, long story short, the Dutch Parliament is calling bullshit and they are demanding that the United Nations do something. Now, because the Chinese not only have a spot on the UN Security Council, but also have a place on the UN Human Rights Council. I swear, this just gets funnier by the fucking second. It's not so funny. I guess really it takes sort of a twisted sense of humor to appreciate it. But yeah, it just gets funnier by the second that the Chinese have a spot on the United Nations Human Rights Council. I mean, I get it. you know, the wealthiest of the wealthy have been handing it to them ever since, you know, right after Tiananmen Square. And this is something that some of you young guys might not remember. If you remember anything about it, what you're going to remember is the one guy with the briefcase standing in front of a line of tanks. I watched that shit happen on CNN live when it was happening. I watched that because I'm old. But after Tiananmen Square, you know about the guy with the briefcase, but you don't know what happened that night after the cameras were off and CNN wasn't covering it anymore, and they rolled tanks into there and they killed demonstrators by the fucking thousands. Ran them down with armored vehicles, shot them down in cold blood, men, women, children, didn't fucking matter. And you want to know how the United States and all our crony capitalists decided to punish the Chinese for that action? We gave them most favored nation trade status. Say what you want about that inarticulate orange buffoon. Say what you want. You cannot deny, if you have any integrity, you cannot deny that in spite of his flaws, and they were many, he was the first United States president, at least in my adult life, since Reagan, to take China seriously as an adversary, militarily, economically, politically. We got treated to 4 years of having the orange fella being accused of being a Putin puppet. Apparently, puppet isn't what they're bothered by. It's the nature of the puppeteer. First of all, after that 3-year investigation, there was no puppetry. No collusion, no obstruction. Mueller came up with bupkis, nothing. But right out of the fucking starting gate, we can see that this new fella, hell, before he even got the office, is entirely compromised to the Chinese Communist Party. Nobody seems to have a problem with that level of being a puppet, particularly the economic interests that stand to gain from it. Oh, you mean we can start outsourcing our shit again? You mean we can move our manufacturing facilities overseas again? Taking jobs away from American citizens, we can move it overseas again and force fucking Chinese slave labor to build our products to turn around and sell them for fucking pennies on the dollar. We can do that again? Oh, thank God. Thank God for fucking Biden. You guys are pathetic. It's disturbing to me how it can be that naked, that out in the open, and nobody fucking responds. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. But that's where we're at. If you want to know what level of compromise we're dealing with, I'm going to tell you the one thing you need to look at. There's only one thing that you need to look at, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about who's compromised to what. I want you to go back and take a look at election night, because I was watching it as it happened. I was watching the returns come in. I had, my usual 8 different tabs pull up, monitoring currency market, one monitoring currency markets, another one monitoring Electoral College, another one monitoring CNN, another one monitoring Fox, another one monitoring BBC, all these different tabs, scooping up all this information to be able to judge for myself what was going on. There's only one thing that you need to take a look at if you want a true picture of who's compromised to what. You take a look at that early on in the evening, before the 6 swing states stopped counting votes because Trump was ahead. Up until that point, take a look at the value of the Chinese yuan on the International Forex Board, because it was here, and as Trump continued to pick up state after state after state after state after state after state after state, value of the Chinese yuan plummeted. They knew, if you go back and read the Time magazine article, again, do your own homework on this. I'm not making it up. Time magazine, because of the arrogance and hubris of these people, came out and basically lined out how they manipulated the election. Media, big tech, everybody. They lined out how they admitted it. They said that they did it not to undermine the election. They said they did it to secure and fortify the election and make sure that it came out with the proper outcome. Go look it up. Right there on Time Magazine, they laid it out for you item by item, and you can bet your fucking ass that there were aspects of Chinese intelligence who were in on that, or at least aware of what was going on. And that's why, when it looked like they weren't going to be able to pull it off, when it looked like, in spite of all of their best efforts, that Trump was still going to win, the value of the Chinese yuan fucking plummeted. And then the minute they were able to stop the counts, and the minute those big boxes of Biden ballots started showing up miraculously, and swing states got shifted, and recounts got ordered, and media went into their damage control mode and everything else, the yuan stabilized and started to climb again once they realized that they were going to be able to, coronate King Biden. The value of the yuan leveled out and then elevated. Tells you all you need to know, but that's where we're at. Here's the disconnect, and this is another this is a different subject. We're going to get off that. We're going to move on to a couple more things because we got about 15 minutes left, and there's a few of these tabs that I want to cover. Daily Wire, Chrissy Clark over at the Daily Wire, and you guys that don't follow the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, he's my favorite favorite Hebrew, and he talks really, really fast. He talks really, really fast, and you know, it's really bothersome sometimes how fast he talks, but he's got a good network over there at the Daily Wire. Yeah. Excuse me. Hey. Sorry, folks. The perils of live entertainment when you have cadavers walking around in your own house. Anyway, where was I? Yes. Oh, the places the woke will go. Dr. Seuss canceled for racial undertones. Right. Dr. Seuss got canceled. Yes. This is our slippery slope fallacy guy again. For more than 20 years, March the 2nd has been recognized as Read Across America Day in honor of Dr. Seuss's birthday. The Reading Recognition Day was founded by the National Education Association, the nation's largest labor union, in 1998. This year's theme is Create and Celebrate Diversity. So, Dr. Seuss, the guy that the whole fucking festival was fucking built around, has now been canceled. Realizing that many schools continue to celebrate Read Across America Day and partial recognition of Dr. Seuss's birthday, it is important for us to be cognizant of research that may challenge our practice in this regard. You see, apparently, Dr. Seuss wasn't woke enough. Yeah. Of the 2,200 identified human characters, there are 45 characters of color, representing 2% of the total number of human characters, the study reads. Of the 45 characters of color, 43 exhibited behaviors and appearances that align with harmful and stereotypical Orientalist tropes. I don't know what's more disturbing, the fact that they are making such a big deal out of this, or the fact that in all their pursuit of things to take offense, with Dr. Seuss, they found none of his work for the War Department propaganda wing. Because if they wanted harmful and stereotypical Orientalist tropes, there was plenty to choose from. I want you guys to look up a book on Amazon called Dr. Seuss Goes to War. He did some scathing cartoons for the War Department with plenty of quote unquote stereotypical Orientalist tropes. But again, they're going to let that define what, again, rather than outrage, rather than how we should feel about that, rather than the outrage that we should feel about that, is it's like, hey, fuck you, you're not taking away my childhood. People are like, no, we should be reflective about this. We should start re-examining our life choices and the fact that we found this funny. In fact, we're bad people for finding this funny, and I'm glad that he got canceled. I think they need to go further. That's where we're at. Of course, slippery slope fallacy guy basically brought up that it was just one school district that was doing this, so it's not the end of the world. I didn't have time to regale him with the 30 different school systems that I found just in a superficial Google search if we wanted to prove it anecdotally, and I could not find any facts and figures to look at it statistically. This is something that we can't give another inch on. Wanted to cover that. But while we're looking at dumbing down and a race to the bottom, this is what they did in Boston. And again, we're pulling off the Daily Wire by Ash Show at the Daily Wire. Boston public schools will suspend advanced classes because too many students in them are white and Asian. Let me try that again, just so it sinks in. Boston public schools will suspend advanced classes because there are too many students in them that are white or Asian. So rather than try to pick everybody else's efforts up, the problem that they're having is that what they're saying is that more than 70% of students enrolled in the program are white and Asian, even though 80% of all Boston public school students are Hispanic and Black. Okay, so you have two minorities that are excelling. And the problem here would be what? Because like it or not, you can't say that it's set up for white privilege if the Asians are doing better than the white kids. If it was just Whitey who was excelling on these standards, then yeah, man, you could totally say it that somehow even in a completely Black and Hispanic urban school district that it was still the white privilege card that was getting pulled, and that somehow it wasn't on their merits or anything that they'd accomplished, that it was just their white privilege. But the problem that's getting thrown into the works here is that the bigger demographic who are in these AP classes are Asians. So what's next? We do everything we can to lower the fucking standards to make it even easier for people to get into AP classes. What do? Equality? Let me give you a little word about equality. And you guys that saw my post earlier in the week. You're going to lose his internet privileges. Start talking about Tank Man, right? You're officially a fogey, my friend. I may be. All I want is some damn peace and quiet around here. Is that too much to ask? Dude, you're lucky you got handled like that. Anyway, this is the thing about equality. Equality is always a race to a bottom. It's always the race to the bottom. You're not going to pull people up because everybody's got their limits. Everybody, every culture, every bloodline has its limits that they are not going to be able, as a general rule, with notable exceptions, to exceed. If you have a racehorse and you have a plow horse, let's say you have a racehorse. No matter how much weight, how often you have him pull, or what diet you feed him, or what training regimen you put him on, a racehorse is never going to be able to pull as much as a plow horse. Never. So how do you make them equal? You have to cripple the plow horse. Cripple the plow horse or lower the standard for what it means to be a plow horse. To qualify to be a plow horse, you have to be able to pull 3,000 pounds. Well, it's not fair and it's not equal. This racehorse can't perform on that same thing, so we're going to lower the standard to 1,500 pounds. And now being a plow horse doesn't mean shit. I hate that we're doing the sock puppet thing right now, but I don't know how much simpler I can break it down to where you understand it. The flip side of that, the plow horse, no matter what diet you put him on, no matter how much you run him on a circle track, no matter what you do to take extraneous body weight and body fat off of him and to cut down and streamline his muscle mass, he is never going to run as fast as a racehorse. So how do you make them equal? You cripple the racehorse. Or you lower the standard of what it means to be a racehorse to the point where being a racehorse doesn't mean shit anymore. Oh, so you're comparing people to horses now. That is not what the fuck I'm saying. Nice duck and dodge. But this is how we've got it twisted. We've got one group of people who are so focused on all these artificial constructs. All these artificial constructs that can't really be affected, but it makes people feel better. And they're all on one side of the equation, and we already know which side, don't we? Kristen Soltis Anderson posted on Twitter this week under the auspices of Echelon Insights. And you should go to that website right now and check out. They have the full breakdown. If you think I'm misrepresenting this in any way, you can go look up the full study for yourself, find out all of these things. Take a look at it. I'm not misrepresenting this. For the people that, for the Republicans that were asked, what are the what's your top concern with regard to economic damage from COVID-19? Spread of COVID-19. How concerned are you at all that the following are a problem for the country? Economic damage from COVID-19, 74%. This is conservatives. 69% spread of COVID-19 infections. 58% budget deficits and the national debt. 56% school closures. 42% income inequality, and 35% cancel culture. That's what Republicans were concerned about. That's what conservatives were concerned about. You want to know what the left is fixated on? Again, Echelon Insights. Kristen Soltis Anderson. Of issues we asked only of Democrats. Their biggest concern. Are you ready for this? This is the Democrats' biggest concern. 82% Donald Trump's supporters. Of all the things going on in this country right now, out of the Democrats that were polled in this, 82% said that the one thing they were most concerned about in today's America, 82% Donald Trump supporters. And then we go down the line. 79% white nationalism, 77% systemic racism, 76% gun violence, 75% Americans lacking health coverage, 73% domestic terrorism, 68% police brutality, 59% discrimination against LGBTQ Americans, 54% sexism, 53% voter suppression, 46% student debt, and 39% the nice vagary of capitalism. Of all the shit going on in this country right now, the visible, tangible shit that is going on in this country right now, if you read down that list of all of those things that they found the most concerning, it reads like a wish list off the official narrative of the exact propaganda talking points that are being presented by the mainstream media. And yet, these people think that they're independent thinkers. But out of all of these, the one statistic that was most damning, 62% of Americans agree that the political climate these days prevents me from saying things I believe in my heart of hearts because others might find them offensive. Now, they broke that down further as to which side was most affected and which side was most cowed into submission and willing to give up their right to speak, or felt like they had to hide their beliefs. Out of this study, the only political group, this is according to the Cato Institute, by the way, you know, those crazy right-wing nut jobs at the Cato Institute, only staunch liberals and leftists believe they can say what they truly believe. Of strong leftists, 6 in 10 feel they can say exactly what they believe. Centrist liberals are even feeling that only 52% of them, 52% of centrist liberals feel like they have to self-censor now, as do 64% of moderates and 77% of conservatives. The damnable part of this is not what they're paying attention to. The damnable part of it isn't the fact that they are propagandized. The damnable part of this is that we have become afraid. They can believe what they want. They can choose to exercise social pressure against what they want. But now, more than ever, it is incumbent upon us to not be afraid anymore. What was it Garrison said in JFK? The old Shakespeare quote, "Let justice be done though the heavens fall. Speak the truth though the heavens fall." Because at this late stage of the game, boys and girls, we literally don't have anything left to lose. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate you guys being here. We meandered a little bit, but I think we got all the important bullet points handled. Guys, leave me some comments, whatever. If you want to drop something in the digital collection plate, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Venmo, I'm on Facebook Pay, I'm on Cash App, I'm on all of it. If you want to drop a couple of dollars into the digital collection plate, that'd be great. But most importantly, get out there and spread the word. Tell them about your crazy friend that does an hour rant and rave session every Sunday. Say, hey, man, this guy's a kindred spirit and a like-minded individual. You might dig what he has to say. You might not, but it's at least worth listening to. But more important than anything else, when you get out there speaking that truth, remember to be the signal, not the noise. Be the light in the darkness and be that strength in a world full of weakness. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate you guys being here. Didn't get a chance to get into some of the prepper tips this week. Got a whole lot of news items to cover, but good news is I got 6 more days before they lift my Facebook ban, and then I'll be back on both platforms. We'll be multi-streaming. By the way, man, guys, get on over to Mo Baxter's page. My boy Mo, dude. Mo has just been the best, dude. Mo Baxter has been holding it down for me this whole time I've been in Facebook jail. He's been reposting my stuff and just carrying stuff. And, you know, he's not a real high-profile guy. He doesn't like being a high-profile guy. He's an asshole like me. He just doesn't like being in the spotlight. So he's really having to make a sacrifice to keep these things out there and keep me in the spotlight. So big ups to Mo Baxter. Appreciate you, Mr. Mo. In fact, if you guys are interested, man, maybe once we start having guests on here in about a month, maybe we get Mo to come in and do a guest spot, man. Get him to do a remote feed on Skype or something. I think it'd be kind of cool. Anyway, get on over, friend him on Facebook. He's been reposting all my stuff. Guys, keep it locked down, man. Find that strength. Don't get black-pilled. Don't ever let that negative shit get the best of you, man. Move forward. If you're going to go down swinging. If you're going to die laughing. Laughing, let us perish. Amid laughter, let us face our doom. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate you guys being here. See you next Sunday. Peace.